All right, YouTube, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. It is Wednesday, November 6th. We got a 12-game, I believe it's 12-game NBA slate to dive into in today's video. Like we always do, I'm going to dive into each and every one of these games. I'm going to give you my lean on the side. I'll give you my lean on the total. We'll talk about any other plays like player props that we like within the game as well. But as always, guys, keep an eye on the pinned comment of this video for all of my final plays, so what I'm actually rolling with myself. Keep an eye on the pinned comment. All right, if you guys aren't aware, you're actually watching on a new channel, More Guy Boston Sports. I've been keeping people more up to date over on Twitter/X at FGuyBoston if you want to follow me there on what's going on with our main channel, the one that we just hit 100,000 subscribers on. But for the time being, this is going to be the channel that we are posting on. So if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, commenting, and liking, it's kind of a, I guess, tough time right now. So I really would appreciate you guys supporting this channel as we're taking it from zero, which really sucks to hit 100K and then have to come over here. And so go ahead and hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and comment to help us out. I really would appreciate it. And make sure you guys drop that hashtag ride of the day in the comments with the situation we got going on here. The ride of the day has gotten a little bit dismantled, but let's jump right back on the horse. Drop that hashtag ride of the day in the comment, your favorite play of the day. If you don't know what it is, I'll explain it quickly. You use this hashtag ride of the day in the comments. I pick one person's pick in the comments. I jump on board with it. I tweet it out. I give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. There's my Twitter right there. Give you a shout out in the next video, win or loss. If you win, we continue to ride with your plays. If you lose, unfortunately, you got to face the womp womp. We got to talk about it, but you still get the shout out and a valiant effort applaud. So go ahead and drop those hashtag ride of the days in the comments. But let's go ahead and jump into game number one here. Hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. Like I've already said, now that means more than ever. So I truly do appreciate it if you do hit that like button and that subscribe button and do comment. But let's jump into game one here. We have Indiana taking on Orlando. Indiana 6-point favorites, total at 226.5. Indiana coming off of a nice win against Dallas, 134-127. Orlando, ever since the Paolo Banchero injury and whatnot, obviously been struggling. Now Banchero's out, Wendell Carter Jr.'s out. I see no reason not to lean towards Indiana. They're the far better offensive team, and I think they're only going to get better. You have the 30th ranked offensive efficiency team versus the 9th ranked. Now, I think Orlando's defense is probably still a little bit better, but with all these injuries, there's nothing that I can really love about it, right? So give me Indiana minus the 6 points. In terms of the total, I don't mind looking at potential over here. Now, I want Orlando to contribute and to hold their own. I'm not sure how their offense will look, but overall, I still do think that this 226.5 is a little bit too low. So I'll lean towards the over, maybe an Indiana team total over. That way we can just focus on the team that I like. But that being said, I still don't mind that full game over because Indiana's defense isn't all that great. So even though Orlando has struggled, obviously, from offense since losing a couple of their guys, and definitely Banchero being the main one, I still think that they may have a little bit of elevation based on what they've been doing. But overall, it's either Indiana team total or the full game over, in my opinion here. And in terms of a player prop spot, I don't mind Tyrese Halliburton over 32.5 PRA. Orlando struggled against the point guard position so far this year. These are the last 3 games that he's played against Orlando as well. And on the season, he's been a little spotty, but maybe we can give him a little bit of credit here. Look at his potential assist numbers just going up and up and up. That's obviously going to be huge. His rebound chances should stay there, but I like the fact that he's getting a consistent flow of minutes against a team that he's been pretty good against in the past. So I like Tyrese Halliburton here over 32.5 PRA. I kind of like any of his stats, but throwing them all together because he can do so many different things is probably how I'd look at it. Oh boy, okay, we got Charlotte taking on Detroit. What an absolute monster of a matchup. This is must-watch TV. You have Charlotte in this spot, 2-5 on the year. Detroit 3-5. Detroit is 5-3 against the spread, so I guess we give them a little bit of credit there. They're coming off of a win against the Lakers. They were at home. Charlotte is coming off of 3 straight losses, but it was Boston, Minnesota. So obviously that ain't the easiest of schedules to go through, right? So I think in this spot, I don't mind a peek at either side. So if you're on Charlotte, then sure, stay on Charlotte. If you're on Detroit, then stay on Charlotte. I think the thing that I would look at here is a potential look at the over. Neither one of these teams plays fast. I get it, but you have two, teams that I don't think can totally dominate any facet of the game. Charlotte, okay, they might be the better offense. Detroit, probably the better defense. Rebounding rate, Detroit should win. But then when it comes to perimeter, in the paint, like, either team can go either direction here. Now, what I will say in terms of if I had to pick, I guess I would look at Detroit just because of the injuries on Charlotte. Still no Williams, and then now Nick Richards out for them. So when you think about Jalen Duren and that type of thing, like, that should obviously be maybe a win in terms of big man play for Detroit. So that's why I would go +2. But again, like, it's still crazy to bet on either Detroit or Charlotte. That's why I do like the over, because it's a low-ish number. I think that both of these teams don't do anything like particularly well, and Charlotte's actually been draining some threes lately, and it's not like Detroit's all that great at stopping it. So both teams can, I guess, specialize in different areas. In terms of player props here, there's nothing that I really love. Maybe a peek at Jalen Duren in terms of a double-double. I like that spot. It's -120, though. I liked it better when we were getting, like, +120 for him. So Jalen Duren double-double could be something that I consider, but I'll go Detroit the over, and then, like I said, Duren double-double. I do think that, honestly, both Cunningham and LaMelo could have decent games as well, but their lines just seem a little bit inflated to me, so nothing that I'm going to dive into. Celtics taking on Golden State. Always good to see these two teams play because they just have such good games against one another, other than the one that they played recently last year. It was 140-88, right? But I think the either two of the last three or the last two before that game had gone to overtime, and we should be fairly healthy on the Golden State side of things. Unfortunately, Jaylen Brown and Kristaps both listed out for the Celtics, so that obviously stinks. In this spot, I'll sound the psycho alert alarm. I am a Celtics fan, but I'm actually going to look at Golden State plus the 7 points. I've seen this move to 6.5 on some places, so I do think the 7's a little bit too much. Do I think the Celtics win the game at home? Yeah, I think that they're the better team. I think that they have a better season ahead of them, but like I mentioned, without Jalen, no Kristaps, 7 just seems like it's a little bit too much, and Golden State's getting healthy. They played well without Steph, then they beat, I guess they played Washington with him, so it's not that big of a deal, right? Did he play in that game? Regardless of that, they still won and played well without him. 4 straight wins here. 6-1 team versus a 7-1 team. Golden State is 4-0 on the road this year. The Celtics have only played 2 home games, which is kind of crazy, isn't that? Like, they've played 8 games now, and they've played 6 on the road. I didn't even really conceptualize that until digging into this game today. But either way, I still go Golden State plus the 7. Now, do I have the cojones to pull the trigger on that? I'm not exactly sure, okay? This is not one of my favorite spots on the board, but I just can't really get to the Celtics side if I'm being completely honest. In terms of a total, I think with the way that these two teams score, I think it'd be silly to look at an under. Now, I will say both of them play really good defense, so if you were thinking under earlier today or this morning, do not let this loudmouth talk you off it, okay? I just look at this and say, okay, well, you have Steph, you have Tatum, like, there's so many ways that these two teams can score, even with the injuries that I mentioned, so I lean over. If this is like 235, then maybe I'd even consider under, so it's not that big of a margin in terms of where my mind is at compared to the line, right? But overall, I'm going to lean towards the over. And then one player prop, let's go and jump into the outlier screen here. Al Horford over 2.5 assists. Would I love this if it wasn't for plus 135? I'm not all that certain, but if we go over to our dashboard here, you could see that Golden State in the paint is obviously very, very strong, right? They're actually just good defensively from almost anywhere that Al Horford would shoot. The corner 3, the in the paint, the restricted area, the above the break 3. So I do like Al Horford over 2.5 assists. If he gets the ball, I think he's going to have to kick it out or pass it out. Now, I kind of mentioned something there that I also want to talk about in terms of why I might like Golden State in this spot. Golden State, so Boston shoots more above the break threes than anyone in the entire league. We know that. They pretty much have done that for, a year and a half now. Golden State above the break threes this year against allowing a 27.3% field goal percentage. 27.3 field goal percentage. So I do not mind the spot. Now, that being said, I know I lean towards the over, and Boston also covers the perimeter pretty well, so take it with a grain of salt. But again, for that plus 7, I don't think that I can hate on the Golden State. Like, that even reassures it, because I was using that in the Al Horford argument here, but for the game argument, it makes a lot of sense. But give me Golden State, slightly lean towards the over, as well as Al Horford over 2.5 assists for plus money. All right, Atlanta is taking on New York here. This is a big number, 7. I've seen 7.5s out there. I like the Knicks in this spot. I think that they're the better team, but 7 points does seem like it's an awfully big amount, but they are coming off of a pretty bad loss against Houston, so I'm going to lean towards the Knicks. I don't necessarily think that I get there overall. This Atlanta team just has not been impressive at home. They're 2-3 this year, and I do truly believe, even though there's been a lot of ragging on the Knicks and was the trade right, and it's still super early, I do think the more and more they play, the better and better they will get, and you have a pretty banged up Atlanta team here. Looks like Hunter may come back. He's a game time decision, but now Trae Young's a game time decision. Now he's listed as probable, so we'll see how that goes, and Trae Young kills the Knicks, so if he's out, it's obviously a Knicks spot, but overall, give me the Knicks minus the points. In terms of a player prop, this Knicks team has not been all that great defensively down low, especially with the injuries that they've had, right? Achua yet to play, Mitch Robinson yet to play, so a guy like Jalen Johnson, who, if he runs the floor, great. If not, he still likes to score in the paint and at the restricted area. Jalen Johnson could be a look. The one thing that I will say, and we can flash up his 2024 log here, that line is very high, and he's clearly capable of some duds, excuse me, but overall, 20 against a good Boston defense. New Orleans, not exactly that tremendous down low. He drops 29. This guy has scored well, but a couple of them are against Washington. One's against the Pelicans, who don't defend the rim all that tremendously. And then the Celtics is the one good value spot, right? But like I mentioned, if we look at this shot chart, New York, 78% in terms of points in the paint restricted area, and then 52.4 there as well. So I like this spot. You can even see points in the paint allowed. New York, in terms of rankings, 21st in the league. So I like the spot. I just don't know if they're as bad as some of the other teams that he's had big games against, but if they are even, at that lower level in the league, then I think Jalen Johnson could kind of feast down there. In terms of a total here, 225, Atlanta plays super fast. The Knicks play super slow. They're actually the third most efficient team in the entire league this year in terms of offensive efficiency, but just ranked 16th in points scored. So that says a lot about it, right? I think I'm going to lean towards a potential Knicks team total over because we're going to be able to get a pretty good line on it. I think I like and I know I mentioned I don't really like the Knicks minus the 7 points all that much. I think I like that more than the team total over because you're still going to be looking for right around 115 points from the Knicks, which is not something they've done all that much. They have done it in 3 of their last 5, but on the year, not so much. So kind of a tough spot for a total here because I do think Atlanta is going to up the tempo, but the Knicks play so damn slow, it makes it difficult, right? So I'll lean over in Knicks team total over, but hopefully you even see it in my face or hear it in my voice. I don't know how much I love it, but as always, guys, keep an eye on the pinned comment. And if you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and comment 11, guys. I really do appreciate it. You guys are going to be picking us up while we're down. We don't know exactly what situation we're in right now. I know a lot of you guys are watching us being like, what's going on? But this is the More Guy Boston Sports channel. We hit 100,000 subscribers over on Guy Boston Sports. I'm keeping you guys updated on what's going on over there over on my Twitter at @EvGuyBoston. But for now, this is kind of home base for at least the time being. So yeah, if you guys would subscribe, comment, everything like that, I would truly appreciate it because the future is unknown right now. I think we'll be good. I'm not saying that, but in terms of timeline and whatnot, things are a little weird. So go ahead and comment 11 if you made it this far in the video. Make sure you're liking and subscribing, and I do appreciate it. And if you want more information on this, make sure you're following me on all these socials. I'm kind of keeping you guys up to date on the situation there. Just don't feel right doing it here, I guess. All right, Houston taking on the Spurs. I like Houston in the spot, so I will lean Houston minus the 6.5. Now, what I will mention is that I wish that it wasn't 6.5. I know I've said that about a couple different spots here, and obviously as anyone looking at these games and you like one side, you're probably like, oh, well, I wish the line was lower. I get that. But the reason I like Houston is because both these teams love to shoot from the restricted area, and both these teams are very good at preventing teams from scoring in the restricted area. In fact, just points in the paint, so not just the restricted area, but points in the paint. You have the number 1 defensive team in San Antonio in terms of points in the paint allowed per game, going up against the number 2 team in Houston. Jeremy Sohan, though, is out for the Spurs. And I'm not going to say that's the massive, kick in the you-know-what for them, but he is one of the guys that loves to shoot in the paint, so they're going to have to rely on, Wemby down there. I know Johnson will play more and whatnot, but overall, they do lose one of the guys that likes to shoot in the paint. But either way, both the teams are very good at preventing points in the paint. The next spot that Houston likes to shoot from and score from is above the break. Fifth highest frequency in terms of the league here ranking. And this is not a very good team in the Spurs that cover the perimeter. The third worst in the entire league at preventing points from three. So you have both teams that are going to duke it out down low. I get it. One team loses a player that likes to shoot down there. Okay, that's obviously a minus for the Spurs, right? And then it's like, well, what if no one can score in the paint? Well, one team can bump it out and start hitting some shots. One team kind of struggles with it, right? So, I do like Houston in this spot. Van Fleet and Green are good to go. The only injury I'll note here is that Dylan Brooks is a game-time decision, but if you compare that to Trey Jones, Devin Vassell, and Sohan, like obviously Jones played this year, but Vassell's still out, and then Sohan's now out. Like I think that those are bigger misses to a San Antonio team that would have been underdogs in this game anyways, right? So give me Houston in this spot. The total's at 214, sometimes 214.5, depending on where you're getting it. No kidding, because both these teams do like to score by two, so if you're counting by twos, NBA games can take a while to get there. 214 does seem low, but if we look at the two games that these two teams have already played this season, 119, 116, 106, 101. So we have a lot of sample size there in terms of looking at a 115 game and then a 107 game. I think they're somewhere in the middle here, so I'll lean towards the under as well. And by the way, San Antonio won the first one, 109, 106, and then Houston won the second one, 106, 101. In terms of player props here, I think that I would take a peek potentially at Jalen Green if maybe we were taking a flyer on something here. So if you look at his three-pointers made, in fact, we can just jump in. Three-pointers made is over 3.5 for plus 120. That's the type of thing that I'm talking about. He had 7 last time they played, and that was in the Houston win. And this is not a very good San Antonio team against the three-pointers. Against the shooting guard, they're kind of middle of the pack. But overall, I don't mind this spot. If it gets anywhere outside of that plus 120, like if we're looking at only on DraftKings, depending on which one, 105 and 100, I don't like it as much. So like I mentioned before we even flashed the screen, if we're taking some sort of a flyer, I don't mind Jalen Green. Now you can look at his over 2.5, minus 175. Maybe that's some sort of parlay piece, something like that. But to me, like I said, if the Rockets have to resort to shooting the three, he's going to take a bunch of them. Like on the season, that guy is averaging, on the year, he's averaging 9.6 attempts per game here. So it's crazy. And he's hit that over in 3. We were looking at his head-to-head against San Antonio. He's hit the over in 3 of those games out of the 7, but almost 10 attempts per game. If he goes and shoots, 40% from 3 like he did a year ago, I think he was like a 35. So if he shoots a little bit better than he did a year ago, we cash that plus 120. Don't necessarily hate that. You know what I mean? All right, New Orleans is taking on Cleveland here. Cleveland is 8-0 on the season. They're 4-0 on the road, obviously undefeated overall, so they're undefeated on the road. Going up against New Orleans, who is still dealing with a bunch of injuries. CJ McCollum's out, Trey Murphy's out, DeJounte Murray's out, Herb Jones is out. That's literally 4 starters right there if you say Herb and Trey both start. But now Zion Williamson and Hawkins are both game time decisions. This is just a mess of a team that I think a lot of people, or at least themselves, thought that they had some nice little inspirational spots coming into this year, especially adding DeJounte Murray. At some point, Cleveland will lose. We understand that. Like, no team goes undefeated, and it's probably like the most unlikely spot that they lose, which could be today. But in terms of leaning purposes, like I'd be kind of crazy to lean against them, right? Like they'll be able to shoot in the paint. In terms of where they rank, the 11th highest frequency team in the league in the restricted area. Yeah, well, points in the paint allowed Cleveland second most per game. So, it's, New Orleans second most per game. Cleveland 5th most in terms of points per game. So I can't really see any reason to get to New Orleans. Even if Zion plays, this Cleveland team is phenomenal at preventing teams from scoring in the paint. And we know that's where Zion's going to, try and score from. One thing I will say is if Zion doesn't play, I think Ingram still continues to have, obviously, the ball a lot and potentially do well. Now, is it the best of spots for him? Not necessarily, because this is a very good defensive team in Cleveland, and I don't necessarily like how his line gets higher and higher. It's at 23.5 now, so in fairness, it has stayed there, but to me, he's hit that in 4 of the last 5 games. I know that's, including injuries and whatnot, but him to go and score 24 points in a game that, what if Zion doesn't play? All that great defensive, ability of the Cavs is going to be just looking at him. So it's still a little bit high. That's where I would go for a player prop. I would also take a big peek at Evan Mobley. Now, we do have concerns here of a blowout, I guess, because we've seen Cleveland do it to teams, but we've seen them also let teams back in. But Evan Mobley over in points is also a spot that I would consider. In fact, let's jump into it and let's see what his line is, because it's been an hour or so since we looked at it. So Evan Mobley's points line right now, 15.5 from -111, -160, 14. Yeah, I don't mind this spot whatsoever. He's going to shoot a lot from the paint, so that's definitely something I would consider. I also want to check out Jared Allen. Let's see what Jared Allen's would be. His is probably right around 14.5 as well. Yeah, for -1. I like both these guys to be able to score in the paint as well, because that's where New Orleans really struggles. So give me Cleveland as well as those two player props. In terms of a total, I'll be honest with you, I almost have no idea. You have Cleveland, who plays fast, but where are the points going to come from on the Pelican side of things if Zion or Hawkins doesn't play? Like, Brendan Ingram's ain't scoring 112 himself, you know? So I don't think that I touch this total, but maybe with some variables removed here, I look at Cleveland team total over. I guess I could convince myself of that. Memphis taking on the Lakers. Russell is listed as game time decision. So is Anthony Davis. Wood, Vanderbilt, similar injuries that we've seen so far. On the Memphis side of things, they have the same injuries that we've seen. Desmond Bane, Gigi Jackson, Marcus Smart, Spencer Williams, Kennard, and Conchar, both game time decisions. One thing I'll say here is that both of these teams like to score in the paint. So in terms of restricted area scoring, in fact, I could show you better than I could tell you. But if we look at this angle might be a little bit better, right? So Memphis this year, last 10 games, so obviously this season, right? They rank 6th in terms of restricted area field goal attempts. LA is 4th, but if we look at how these two teams actually defend the restricted area, Memphis, pretty damn good so far. The Lakers, really struggling, and you can even see it from a points in the paint allowed perspective here. Memphis is number 1, no matter how you look at it, at points in the paint per game. So I think that could be the distinguishing factor here. So give me Memphis. Do I wish that they were healthy? Yes. And I also am concerned with LeBron and AD down low with Zach freaking Edey. You know what I mean? Like, that's not exactly the best spot for the Rook who loves to foul. But Jaren Jackson Jr. is down there, and I'm hoping he can pick up some of the slack. So if this was maybe any more than a money line look, because it's -1, right? So we're essentially looking at a money line play. If this is anything more than that, I may say stay away, but because Memphis is at home, because they should be able to win that in the paint battle, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is healthy, I do think that this could be a nice spot for us to consider Memphis on the money line. That total's at 229. I mean, Memphis plays fast, but I don't necessarily think this is going to be a high scoring game. I do think that Memphis can get some easy buckets, but again, we should be counting by twos here, so that may take a little bit longer overall. In terms of player props, I think I would consider Jaren Jackson Jr. and Ja Morant. Geez, I almost said D'Anthony Melton. How ridiculous of a pull was that? Ja Morant here and Jaren Jackson. Jaren Jackson, we could probably get him 19.5, yeah, for maybe better odds here. Head-to-head looks whatever, so it's not exactly the best spot. But Ja Morant, you know, with no Bane and whatnot, his lines are going to be super, elevated, right, and just inflated. So there's probably nothing we end up doing player prop-wise here, but I would look for guys to score in the paint against the Lakers. So if any names ring a bell to you guys, go ahead, go for it. I know we have AD and LeBron down there, but the proof's in the pudding. They're not covering the paint that well this year. All right, Dallas taking on Chicago. Look, who I think is the better team is obviously Dallas. Do I believe that they should be 10-point favorites over Chicago? Not necessarily. So I think that I lean Chicago plus the 10 points, but I really think Dallas wins this game. It's just that double digit seems a little bit too much. Chicago likes to shoot the above the break 3. Dallas has been decent at stopping threes this year, so I guess we give them a little bit of credit there. In terms of injuries, though, Josh Giddey's a game-time decision. Levine's a game-time decision. Pat Williams is a game-time decision. So it's not exactly the best spot here in terms of them being banged up, whereas the only new injury, I guess you could say, for Dallas, and it is a big one, I can't admit, PJ Washington and actually Maxi Kleber, right? So they do have a couple guys that hamstring them, but again, we lean Chicago plus the 10 points. Those injuries on the Dallas side only help us, I guess. Is it my favorite spot? No, and I know we're going to get guppies in the comments. Oh, why are you even talking about it if it's not your favorite spot? Because we talk about every single game, and I love talking about sports. You know, whatever, screw me. But to me, I feel like it's okay for me to tell you I would lean Chicago. I don't know how much I love it, right? That's just me being transparent. I'm never going to fake confidence for content, like I've said before. So give me Chicago plus the points. I think Dallas is the way better team, though. Total is sitting at 235. You have the fastest-paced team going up against Dallas, who's kind of middle of the pack this year, but I don't really see where Dallas has trouble scoring today, so I'm going to lean towards the over 235, even though it's like one of the, I think it's the second highest total we have on the board today. I still don't mind the over. From a player prop perspective, if Levine plays, I might look at like an under for threes from him just because Dallas has been good at preventing the threes and he's obviously a little bit banged up, but no major player props stick out to me. Like even on the Dallas side of things, PJ Washington being out, though he's not one of the three main scorers there, like I want to still, that still can kind of funk things up. You know what I mean? Funk. I didn't swear, guys. I was a respectful boy there. Respectful boy. Mom, can I have some more? Getting weird. All right, let's go ahead and move on to the next game. OKC taking on Denver. This is another spot where it's like I'd be crazy if I'm telling you that I think OKC isn't the better team. OKC is the better team. They're 7-0 this year, 4-0 on the road. Denver has had their struggles, but they may be looking better. I say that with like a I don't know, maybe cringe when I say it. They've won 4 of their last 5, but those wins were against Toronto twice, Brooklyn, and Utah. They lost to Minnesota. But this is another spot where 7 points seems like it's just a little bit too much for me. Do I sit here and say that OKC probably wins this game? No kidding. They're the better team. They're incredible defensively this year. They can play fast. They can play slow. But I don't necessarily think that this is a great spot to be laying 7 points. When we look at it from an injury perspective, nothing absolutely amazing on either side. Jamal Murray's listed as out, but I actually don't think that that's gonna, like, I don't think that that is going to keep them out of this game. Aaron Gordon, I think, is questioned. He might be out as well. But again, 7 points to me, it seems like a spot in which Jokic can take over. Michael Porter Jr. can step up. Like, part of the, I guess I would say part of Denver's great thing is that they have a good starting lineup. Their bench stinks, but with these injuries, I think everybody and their grandmother's ex-boyfriend is going to be on OKC, and at some point, just like with Cleveland, at some point, I feel like, you know, you just have an off game, and you're in Denver against a team you already beat this year, against a team in Denver that is very good at controlling how games go. Yeah, I think it's worthy of the psycho alert alarm now that I talk about the injuries, right? Jamal Murray and Aaron Gordon, I'm still leaning Denver, and I still like Denver. Yeah, psycho alert, I get it. Maybe a crazy pick, but I'm going to stick to it. In terms of the total, I think the only way Denver wins this game is if it stays low scoring. I think that they're going to have to truly combat OKC down low, which, you know, in all fairness, it's not like either of these teams have been terrible at defending the rim. OKC's just been way better than Denver, but Denver's still fine. So if Denver can get it going down low, maybe get to the line, I think this game stays close, but, you know, again, we're kind of counting by twos there, like I've said a million times this video. I still lean slightly towards that under. And then no player props that I'm liking in this one. Too many injuries to kind of impact things. All right, Phoenix taking on Miami. Phoenix 5.5 point favorites here. Total down at 222.5. It's actually at 221.5 on some places. One thing I'll say here is I tried like heck to try and find an angle to Miami because I think it's another big number. I couldn't get there. So I still think that Phoenix is the better team and wins this game. But one way that I may give Miami, I guess, some credit is leaning towards the under of this game, or even a Phoenix team total under. That way Phoenix can still win the game. They can even win the game in blowout fashion for all I care, but I don't necessarily say that I think that they come in here and drop a bunch of points. So I do lean Phoenix team total under, but let's not confuse that with the idea of me saying that they're not going to win or they're not going to cover or anything like that. You know what I mean? Like, we can get under 116.5 right now for minus 135. That might be a spot that we look at. You want to get plus money under 113. Like that could be how we view it here, because I think Miami's going to slow this pace down. And also Phoenix is going to struggle in some spots here, right? Like Phoenix likes to shoot from the mid-range. Nope. Miami's a very good defensive mid-range team. Phoenix likes to shoot from above the break three. Miami's not all that terrible at it. Phoenix likes to shoot from the corner. Miami's good at defending that. Phoenix loves to make shots, not in terms of frequency, but their field goal percentage at the restricted area is very good. Miami's decent at stopping that. So it's like, I just don't think Phoenix is the easiest time offensively. I know we can look back tomorrow and being like, well, Phoenix broke an NBA record with 310 points scored. I don't see it like that, though. Bradley Beal's also listed as questionable. That might be worth noting. But yeah, I think my favorite player might be Phoenix team total under or the game total under in general. I would also look at Devin Booker. And again, none of this is saying that I think Phoenix doesn't win the game or anything like that. I'm just kind of more or less speaking to the game script, but I would look at Devin Booker under 25.5 points. Again, Miami loves shutting down the mid-range. Devin Booker likes to shoot at the mid-range, so I think that this could be a spot that's decent for Miami to clamp up, still potentially lose the game, but play decent defense, if that makes sense. And a reminder, guys, before we do get into these last two games, that all of the plays that I talk about here are things that I like, but keep an eye on the pinned comment of this video for all of my final plays, so that I'm actually rolling with myself. If you disagree or agree, great. You can take all this information in the video. That is what it is for, but what I'm actually rolling with myself, if that interests you, all for free in the pinned comment, so keep an eye on that. But let's move on to this one. Sacramento taking on Toronto here. Sacramento, big-time favorites, sitting there at 10.5 point faves at home. In terms of what we've seen from this, Toronto actually just beat Sacramento in Sacramento, or no, they were at home, but they just played a couple games ago in overtime. They won. I think Sacramento bounces back in this spot. It's too much for me to really love. Kevin Huerter still a game time decision. He didn't play last time with injury, but in terms of injuries for Toronto, you still have Quickly, who's doubtful, Barnes, Brown, Olynyk. Like, I don't think that RJ Barrett's at least playing for them, right? But I don't think that this is a Toronto team that does the same thing twice in a row. So I think Sacramento, the fact that they're at home here, they have a revenge sort of narrative that they can tap into if they want. And Toronto loves to shoot, from the restricted area. Sacramento's been pretty damn good at preventing points in the paint so far this year, 7th best. Now, you could throw it all out the window. I get it, because we just saw these two teams play. They went to overtime and Toronto won outright as dogs. I just don't think it happens again. That total at 238. Sacramento's going to have to play better defense if they want to win this game. So maybe you look at team total under for Toronto or the full game under overall. If I had to pick, I would probably say give me a team total under for the Raptors, just because I don't want to sit here and prevent a fast team like Sacramento from going off and scoring. But from the Toronto side of things, we can look at under right now, under 114.5, under 115.5 for pretty good odds at -130. So I think that could be a spot. Now, could they be sort of a result of Sacramento upping the pace? Sure, and we know that Toronto doesn't play very good defense, so they've been playing fast. I just think that where they like to score, the Kings could give them some trouble tonight. So in terms of a player prop, kind of to lead into that, I think RJ Barrett could struggle as well. Now, my one concern there, let's see what his points line is. We can jump into the outlier screen. His points line right now is 24.5. Yeah, it's still at 24.5. Last time he played them, he had 31. That was obviously in a bunch of minutes. If we look at him on the season, right, and when he's played, I guess we could say 33 or so minutes, he's actually only hit the over in 2 of his games. And that was against Charlotte and the Lakers. Not very good defensively, right? Now, he does mix it up and shoot from other spots on the field and court, but I don't necessarily think he's going to have the easiest time tonight. I don't think he's going to play 40 minutes either. So I like his under. I don't love his under, but I like his under. All right, the Clippers are taking on Philadelphia. Kind of an interesting one here. Obviously, still no Joel Embiid. In fact, it's not just injury now. He's going to be serving his 3-game suspension, so he'll be back in a little bit. Embiid is such a question mark in my brain right now. Anyways, Paul George is listed as questionable, but on some sites probable, so he might play. Kawhi Leonard, Mo Bamba, and PJ Tucker all still out for the Clippers. In terms of how these two teams have been playing recently, we know Philadelphia has been struggling, but they did keep a game close against Phoenix in Phoenix last game, and that was with Paul George making his debut. The Clippers coming off of a decent performance against the Spurs. I think I have to lean Clippers here. They're at home. You can get them for 1.5 right now. They're just they're way more in sync, even with the injuries and whatnot, than this Philadelphia team. They should win the offensive battle, the defensive battle. They should be the better rebounding team. They should definitely dominate in the paint. The only thing I would say is that Philadelphia, I think, will definitely dominate the perimeter game. So that's worth noting. And they're shooting a lot of above the break 3 so far this year. So I think that's fair to note. I just don't necessarily know if it puts them over the top. Like everything else I mentioned, assist to turnover ratio, like everything leans towards the Clippers. So I like the Clippers in this spot. Total is there at 220. Yeah, it is pretty damn low, but I think the Sixers offense looks a little bit better with Paul George. Now, he only had, 15 points, but he got to the line and he missed a bunch of threes. Like, he could have easily had a 20-point game. I have no doubt about that. So if Paul George plays well against his old team, like, I think that we could see the point total sort of creep up. So I like the over here in this spot as well. It's probably going to fit into that category of like versus love again, though, if I'm being completely honest. But guys, that is going to wrap it up for today's show. Make sure you do hit that subscribe button and like button. I hate kind of pandering and whatnot, but if you know, and I do appreciate it if you do kind of take this opportunity to just click those 2 free buttons and comment for free as well to help us out here. But I'll catch you guys in the next one, all right? Peace out.